Now you can see there where there's some straight lines, and clearly we're going to have to sand those all around. And down here we didn't touch yet, we'll have to sand that as well. But basically, this side hasn't been filled with filler yet. What we had down here was fiberglass filler. This is what I'm using, ABC Glass Plus. Don't know who makes it or whatever. My Body Shop supply place has this, and he said it was really good, and actually it's decent. It's a little bit, it seems to have a lot of resin in it, so it's not all half dried out, which is nice. But when you first go to move it, it's almost like it's been settled and gelled, so you move it a little. And anyway, Kevlar reinforced. I don't know if that makes it any better than anything else, but it's pretty good. And I always like to add a little bit of resin to it, just a little bit. But basically what we had here, these were welded on off another car, so up under here we had some old torch welding. So it all looked like brass in there. It was all kind of brazed in place. And then up here, same sort of idea, and up here. So we took all the bad filler out. We had to go pretty much down to the metal. Down here I didn't, but from about, say, here up into here. And we basically filled it all in with the fiberglass filler. As you can see, there's a lot of shape to that. And it goes right up into the fender real nice now, which is nice. We got to go around that edge. We're going to do that by hand. You can see even from the light down. We're pretty happy with that at this point. Right here, well, there's a little bit there yet. That's got to be either blocked, but I think our primer will take care of that. And then, of course, you can see all the little dots and spots and air bubbles. And so we're going to have to go around. We're going to have to touch those all up with a little bit of body filler. But the nice thing is I don't have to put a bunch of body filler here. It's going to be fill all the little spots and holes. And we'll skim it a little bit. And I will put a skim coat over this whole edge. Now I just threw some primer on it to see the shape so that I'd know what I have to do. That's not a mark, that's just dust. But we're pretty happy with that. 55 Pontiac. We did some major repairs up here. They blend in good. So the whole point of this video, I wanted to show you the front over there. Now this one, you can see where all the fiberglass is. And we're going to have to do a skim coat of filler to get that to blend in, because I didn't put as much fiberglass here. Actually, that's pretty good. If I painted that actually with some primer, it would probably show up okay. If you come over here, you can see like there's some holes and voids. Nothing too crazy. There's a couple big ones up here. And keep in mind, there's a plate welded over a plate and all these other things going on. But we're going to have to fill that. And what happened here is we had to sandblast up in here. Up in here it had been welded together, and below the weld this was rusty. So we did a layer of fiberglass, and I didn't put enough on to block it in. Fiberglass filler is harder to work with. They got that divot there for whatever reason. We don't care, we're not using it. And then I put some filler on, which started to dry a little too quick. So I'm going to have to block all that out the same way. We have way too much up in here, but that's okay. We're going to come up and block that in flat like the other side. And basically, even with the fiberglass, the tools to get the shape, here's some 80 on a round Durablock. Here's some 80 on a small flat Durablock. We used one of these little stools. There's a 3.5 pad with some 120. You can see I used 1, 2, 3 of those. That's everything we use. That other piece of paper is nothing. There's a piece of 120. So you can come in and get a little bit of sand marks or haze out of it. shoot a little more primer on. Now this primer is just some stuff out of a spray bomb, but I mean, it's not lacquer based, it's a professional grade stuff. And the thing is, any metal that shows, because it was metal here and there, we want to kind of etch that for now. We're going to go around and sand this whole vehicle, so pretty much all that primer will be gone, because we're going to do a primer coat and seal the whole car. As you can see, we're not taking this whole vehicle down like a restoration. But there's ways of doing that. But basically, those 3 tools and a few pieces of sandpaper, we were able to get all that. And there was a lot of fiberglass on this side. It was the worst side, so I put enough on that we were able to get it. You can see little divots. We're going to have to fill all those. So there won't be a lot of filler, which is great. This side was the good side, except for down here. But we'll get that. For some reason, this fender just going to sweep it off kind of so I can show you. You can see we're going to have to fill all these little spots here and there. There's one up there. They're not very big. We don't want to sand those out because we got the shape we want. So right now where it stands, the tops of these always rot out, and someone had torch welded stuff in. There was a lot of high spots. We had to smash all the high spots in, fill across the whole thing, and of course any deep dents we pulled. You know, we did some metal finish work, but no, we're not metal finishing this car to where it's perfect. We made it good. The idea is we want to have filler in it to make it perfect. We're not going to spend, 8 years restoring this. We spent a few weeks on it in the fall, and then I brought it out this spring, and on and off we've got a few weeks into it. But everything's got to flow really good. Now sometimes, and this is the thing I'll get at, so if you're at home and you're thinking about doing a car and you're thinking restoration versus can I just fix it up and repaint the car and have a decent car? Now, if you do it all the time and you got a lot of experience or even enough time or budget to cover the time, you can probably always do what we're doing here. I don't necessarily recommend it on a car that was quite as rough as this. Now, this car had no rot in it because someone back in the 70s had cut all the rot out and welded a lot of new steel into the car. Some of it was welded around the back quarters. Some of it was torch welded, and then later it was redone, and someone had used another, like spot welds, an older type spot welder. So this car had a lot of waves and weaves. Back in the day, that wasn't important. Just get all the rot out, throw some paint on it, right? So they weren't too concerned about how nice it was. It was more about, hey, let's save the car, make a few $100 off it. Or they liked the car and they wanted to save it. But whoever did the work on this car did good work. Now, the reason I say good work, it's not that this car was done in a nice looking way, but it was done in a way that they cut the rot out, they went to metal, they put the filler in. There was no rust. As we took all the filler off, we found very little rust on this car. What else we found was ins and outs. For instance, right through here, of course, I had to put a little bit of fill there. We've filled this whole panel. One good fill, and then a second, and now you're looking at the third. There's a little bit there and a little bit there. Oh, and there was probably another time where we did up here, and then I realized I didn't do in here. And once I blocked this flush, this was low. That's why that's there. Now, that being said, this is where all the filler goes. Right? What's this? Look at that. That's, anyway, that's about 3/4 of an inch deep there where I piled it up. Most of your filler is going to end up on the floor, and that's where you want it to go. And that's sort of the idea. You got to put enough on that you block it and get a good surface. Once you get a good surface, if you have lows, don't sand them out. Go across them till the whole thing is nice. Once it's where you want it to be, fill those spots. So as you can see here, we did those. There's a little too much on there, but once we block that in, it'll disappear. We know our body line is absolutely perfect. We will have to work it a bit there, but I didn't want to fix this and then have a hollow in between, so I had to drag it down around. Down there we'll touch up by hand. I still haven't done that. But essentially, we're going to have to put a little bit of fill right here. I took the groove down too far, and when it's wet it looks weird. So from here we'll stop, we'll put a bit of filler and just kind of block that across with a pencil eraser wrapped in paper, which will be the block for that. The reason I wouldn't recommend doing this necessarily, it might take you a lot of time and a lot of blocking. Sometimes it's easier to go right down to the metal, try to straighten out as much as you can, and basically flood the whole entire car. But if a car is nice and clean, it's definitely going to be easier to do. Now, the other quarter was the bad quarter that we took completely down and flooded. This is one where we flooded the front and from the body line down. We recreated the body line, and although the body line was on point, on my last blocking it was high in this area here in a couple spots. There was no way around it, so even after doing the work, we took this guy, we came up to where the metal was showing, and we knocked it in, and I had to do that twice. So now I believe I'm where I can block it in, but sometimes you're chasing waves and stuff and you don't want to knock something in to mess it up in other places. So keep that in mind. You might have to do a fender 4 or 5 times. Sometimes you get away with like once and then finish it out with a second. But in this case, this was the least amount of work as far as looking at it went, and it ended up being a lot of work. Now that being said, everything you see here that's all patchy and funny looking, that's all blocked out, and that's going to be absolutely flat. We're a little bit weird here because you can't block the paint as much as some of the under stuff. But I mean, that's smooth enough that, well, maybe it is. But our primer will take care of that. We're going to do a nice layer of primer on here and block that. So we're happy there. But this looks like a lot of work. This is actually just about done. Our door, totally done. Little spot down there, chipped out. I forgot to hit it. I got to fix that spot. So that's done. You can see the fender's as done as it's going to get, except for at the very front down here. Our hood is done. It's basically sand and prime. This door is sand and prime. We're not going to worry about it too much. And the worst part of this car was actually the trunk. This whole side here had been caved in. So, anyway, the whole point of this video, showing you those spots on the front and tools I used to fix those. A little bit of patience, you're pretty much sculpting. And the second point of this video, sometimes tear it down and start over. And I mean, look, sometimes you get through a panel like this quarter, which was going to be terrible. I went through it fairly easily. Ended up chasing the other side. Did a little bit of chasing. This fender came out really good, really quick. And this one I had to do it a couple times and then a third time. And I wasn't happy with it till now. It almost seemed too flat where the other side looked around her, so I filled it again, blocked it again. Now we're talking, you know, 1/16 of an inch, 1/32 of an inch. And the shape is weird. Now I'm getting kind of picky and a little weird with it too, and that's my OCD. But anyway, take your time, you can do this. Cheers.